In a new bombshell drop of information, we see that newly minted Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has come out and released all of the 44,000 hours of footage from January 6th, which will be crucial in deciphering the nature of the propaganda that was disseminated to the American populace surrounding the entire ordeal of January 6th. Why is this so big? Because the media lied consistently surrounding the nature of what happened on January 6th, because they are nothing more than apparatchiks for the government, because they are nothing more than state media affiliates at this point. People like to act like journalists are nothing more than good, willing envoys of the truth, but many of the times people have to understand that they're nothing more than apparatchiks and mouthpieces for that of the establishment class. And why is this important? Because what happened on January 6th was a defiance of the establishment class and this ethos. And the ethos that many of the people on January 6th hold was that they believed in democracy. They thought that it was a noble system that they should support. And with it, so many of them truly believed in it to such a degree that they were willing to storm the US Capitol building because they thought that their choice was stolen from them, and with it, that their democracy was being taken for granted, and that their freedom to choose who they want to be their leader was being stripped away. Why is this so important? Because these are the individuals who really believe in this system. These are the people who will send their sons and daughters to go fight and die in these wars for the US empire. These are the people who would gladly bleed on the flag to make sure the stripes stay red. But nonetheless, I digress. What's another reason this is so important? It's so important because so many of the people like Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman, and many others who were locked up on January 6th, or after the events of January 6th, I should say, were released from jail. They were released from their imprisonment because the footage vindicated them from the crimes with which they had been accused of committing. And what I think is so fascinating about this is that this could lead to so many people who were wrongfully convicted being freed, and it can also defy the narrative in real time with which we have been fed so much. And honestly, the thing is, I wonder the nature of how many of the people on the progressive left and the natural, just I would say, NPC mindset that just operate on that of the establishment ethos, whatever's presented to them, they believe because it's the person at the front of the room in the suit and tie on the TV, and the person in the suit and the tie would never lie to them because they would never lie to their neighbor. So why is it that the person in the front of the room that's supposed to be the arbiter of truth would ever tell them a felonious lie? And it makes sense when you think about the mental processing of how these people would perceive those at the front of the room being the arbiters of truth. Well, the people on January 6th, those who really believe in democracy, one thing that I find so important to cover is that because they believed in this, they were willing to go commit these actions like they did on this day. And it turned from the process of a protest into a riot, and it got violent. And there were people that violated property rights. There were people that aggressed onto police, and those people will be dealt with. But here's the thing. There are innocent people who were locked up and have been sitting in solitary confinement for the majority of their lockup. And this is absolutely abhorrent. The nature of the people going to their democratic institutions with which they believed were nothing more than government buildings, well, what you have to understand is that government operates like nothing more than a religion in those who are not godly people for many of the times. And we see this for many of those within the, I would say, establishment class. They do not have a God, and because of this, they worship government as it. The thing that you need to see when you look at government institutions and you look at these massive government buildings, this is not a bastion of sacred democracy. And what this is not the house of the people as many people have perceived it. What this is the house of the warmongers and war criminals, and you just breached their sacred cathedral. And that is why we have the major persecution that we had of the people on January 6th. Now let's go ahead and jump into this recent information that is dropped with all of this footage and the commentary from the people on the internet that are talking about the nature of what's going on. Breaking from ALX on Twitter, all 44,000 hours of footage from January 6th has been released publicly from Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. And he made a statement talking about this, so let's go ahead and jump into that. When I ran for Speaker, I promised to make accessible to the American people the 44,000 hours of video from the Capitol Hill security taken on January 6, 2021. Truth and transparency are critical. Today, we will begin immediately posting video on public website and move as quickly as possible to add the website nearly all footage, more than 40,000 hours. In the meantime, a public viewing room will ensure that every citizen can view every minute of the videos uncensored. This decision will provide millions of Americans, criminal defendants, public interest organizations, and the media an ability to see for themselves what happened on that day, rather than having to rely upon the interpretation of a small group of government officials. I commend Chairman what a name, and his team for the diligent work to ensure the thousands of hours of videos promptly processed to be uploaded to the committee's public website. Processing will involve blurring the faces of private citizens on the yet unreleased tapes to avoid any persons from being targeted for retaliation of any kind, and segregating an estimated 5% of the videos that may have been involving sensitive security information related to the building's architecture. Well, isn't that just unbelievable? We finally have someone who is coming to the fruition of releasing this information to the American public. Nancy Pelosi wouldn't do it. We saw that Kevin McCarthy wouldn't do it, but Mike Johnson apparently certainly will, and he has. And this is unbelievable because, as I've already stated, this could lead to innocent people being released from jail. Now, one thing I love about the nature of what this entails is how it's going to show those who care about truth and those who only care about their side and their party politics, those who exist nothing but within the realm of partisanship. Well, here's the thing. If you're on the left, and let's say you hate the Republicans, you hate the Democrats, you don't like the Trump supporters, you think they're all just deplorables, as Hillary Clinton called them, well, wouldn't you still want this footage to be out there? Wouldn't you want the truth to be out there to see the nature of what really happened on this day, to see if the establishment was lying? Because if they lied about them, wouldn't it be possible that they would, I don't know, lie about you when you stopped being useful, when you stopped being the useful idiots that you are? Just a thought. Now on to Tim Pool. The police facilitated January 6th. This is why they withheld the tapes. The J6 committee should be censored and expelled for lying to the public. And here we can see the footage. Right now, it's just people walking through, looking like a guided tour. Just like, oh my God, wow, look at this building. It's so beautiful. We had old ladies and elderly folks walking through guided tours effectively between the red velvet ropes, not even breaching or touching anything. And you can see so many of them are just walking around, looking around, and they're just awestruck. And it's because so many of them have never seen beautiful architecture akin to what exists in the Capitol building. If you're not aware of what it looks like inside of these buildings, look it up. It's absolutely breathtaking. The creators of these buildings should be remembered in the annals of history as some of the greatest architects in the United States, but we never talk about them. And we completely abandon this beautiful structure of design. And with it, you can see so many of the people, as I've already stated, who are just walking around bewildered, looking at everything that's going on. And they're just like, wow, look at all this. Because it's genuinely breathtaking. Nonetheless, we move on to Savannah Hernandez. Horrifying footage released from Mike Johnson of the violent January 6th insurrection. That was worse than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor combined. And I remember the rhetoric from the corporate press, which is exactly what she's referencing, saying that this was a bigger threat to America than 9/11. This was a bigger hit on America than 9/11. We lost 2,900 Americans on 9/11, almost 3,000 people. And they're saying, yeah, this is absolutely worse than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. This is another example of why you should not take the journalist class with any bit of seriousness, because these people are nothing more than poison peddlers. On to Erica Bonde. Says, is January 6th an insurrection? Why were people allowed to leave the Capitol like a movie theater? Well, clearly this confirms what we've said since January 6th. The J6 tapes would have exonerated every person charged, and this is why these tapes were not released. And that is what I really hope happens, because the nature of so many of these people who are being charged by the federal government for walking through a building which did no crimes, and I mean literally not violating any statutes, not violating property rights, not assaulting police officers, quite literally doing effectively exactly what they would be doing when it comes to the process of taking, as I've already said multiple times, a guided tour. And here we can see the police escorting them out of the building and walking them out. And what we can see here when we go into another clip, we see breaking: the recent release of the J6 videos by Speaker Johnson appears to be proving the insurrection was an inside job. In this video alone, we can see Capitol Police release a protester and allow him to keep his gear after he got out of view. Why is that? Why is it that the police are just letting this random Capitol protester that they arrested in front of absolutely everyone, why are they letting him go, and why are they letting him keep all his gear? Why didn't they check his wallet? Why didn't they get his ID? Why didn't they inspect him? Why didn't they arrest him? Just a thought. Now on to DC Drano. Pelosi has never released the J6 tapes. The J6 committee never released the J6 tapes. The DOJ and FBI never released the J6 tapes. Kevin McCarthy never released the J6 tapes. That's how you know there's a lot of footage that destroys the insurrection narrative. Time to dig and expose, and that is exactly what the internet sleuths and armchair journalists are going to be up to for the next coming weeks. Here we see from Josie the Redheaded Libertarian. For 3 years, the deep state has used the same 10 minutes of J6 footage to hunt Americans like animals, hold them without trial, keep them in solitary, abuse and humiliate them, and have dirty judges lock them up for decades. This is why they didn't want you to see the 44,000 hours of footage. Absolutely true, Josie. Spot on as usual. Now we're going to go ahead and slide into Brooklyn Dad Defiant. And Brooklyn Dad Defiant, for those who are unaware, is quite literally a paid propagandist for the Democratic apparition. Well, here we see, in the recent J6 tapes released, they want to gaslight us into forgetting what we saw. Cops beaten by flagpoles and fire extinguishers, cops crushed in a door, panicked messaging from Laura Ingraham and Don Jr. begging Meadows to get Trump to stop the violence. I remember all of it. So yeah, this is wrong, and these people that are spraying pepper spray at cops are wrong for doing so. The people that are assaulting police officers and violating property rights are wrong for doing so. But this isn't the majority of people. And what we see is it's just a consistent loop of a small bit of footage, which is all the Democratic establishment and the envoys who are purporting their narrative have been using throughout the entirety of the time that they talk about this. They use small segments of footage solely because these are what support their narrative, and everything else outside of it, the 44,000 hours of footage outside of what we see here, well, it doesn't really support this, so they completely avoid it and then recycle everything we've already seen from this conflict because they've been using it endlessly. Now we go on, and here we see from Epstein's sheet, the J6 insurrection was one big setup. These metropolitan police officers knew it that day. It's time to release all the J6 prisoners and start arresting the architects of this day. Nancy Pelosi would be a great start. Now, let's go ahead and start this video over, and what we see is it's police officers talking about the fact that they feel they were set up because they asked for more reinforcement and they were never given it, and they feel that they were thrown under the bus. And what we see is so many people, like in the media class, were criticizing Capitol Police for not doing enough. Well, they didn't have the resources to do enough to stop something like this.
They set us the fuck up. That's what they did. They set up 64. Oh, absolutely. And then they asked y'all to come 2 hours later. They set us up. They needed everybody right away. Nah, right away. They set us the fuck up. So now we ain't got shit. We ain't got no motherfucking thing. They set us the fuck up. Take this motherfucker. Shit.
I'm hot. Here, you need water? Nah, here.
Capitol Police on the ground talking about the fact that they feel like they were set up. And for those that are unaware, Nancy Pelosi and many people within the government called for removal of security and a reduction in force on January 6th when they knew this protest was going to take place. So it really makes your mind jog when you come to the things that, I don't know, could have been established and set up to possibly happen. And I don't know if that actually happened. But it's important that we ask these questions because we look at the narrative that has been presented and is clearly broken when we see all of these things that defy it. And as we see, we're about to have 44,000 hours of footage that will completely be breaking down all of the propagandistic bullshit that has been peddled to so many of us around this whole ordeal. Now let's go ahead and jump into the website that you will be able to go to so you can watch the footage yourself. Everything I use will be linked in the description down below as per usual. Now let's go ahead and jump into that. Now we have the actual website here where you can go and look at the footage yourself. As I've said, will be linked in the description down below. And what I find so fascinating about this is that it's just being put out. Free access. Everyone's like, all right, go ahead, click through this. Just scroll through all the pages, choose whichever one you want. And with it, I promise you, there are going to be people who spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours going through this footage because we're going to need people that do it. And this is going to be one of the major things that, again, completely destroys people's trust in the corporate press, destroys people's trust in government, and the people in the establishment keep doing these things, acting like this is going to make anything better, when in the end, it feels like they know what they're doing is only going to make things worse, but what they're trying to do is kick the can down the road so they're not the ones in power when everything comes collapsing down on the heads of those who are running everything. Alrighty, and now talking about those who are running everything. Well, the man who was running everything that instituted January 6th was Donald Trump, and what he did was leave all of those people who went to this protest, who were then in the Capitol building, and many of those who were locked up, thrown in jail, well, he didn't talk about you. He abandoned you, in fact. He didn't mention the fact that you should be released from jail, and Donald Trump completely left you in the dustbin of history and would have been completely okay with the fact of all of these innocent people rotting in jail solely because it would have meant that he wouldn't have been tarred and feathered the way that they were. And here's the thing we have to consider. While this is my mindset on this, and I think that Donald Trump should have spoken up, you can also consider the fact that if Donald Trump did these people within the January 6th protest, the ones who were thrown in jail, the ones who were locked up, who were put in jail without trial, who were put in solitary confinement, it's very possible they could have been given worse treatment solely based on the fact that the media and the government was so against Donald Trump that they could have just used it as ammunition, say, see, he's standing up for them, or let's not even say, see, he's standing up for them. Let's say it's the possibility that it's just the fact that he's mentioning them and it's keeping these people more in the mind of those who are purporting the narrative, and because of it, they will be cracking down even harder on those who are already suffering from this than they already did. So, while that is my perspective on the fact that I believe Donald Trump should have spoken up, we have to think about the nature of what could have happened if he did, and we can't just analyze this from a binary filter. We have to look at this from all angles, and that is what is important so we can get the most honest analysis, so we can see what is best for what would have happened, I would say, in the moment, and then so we can know the nature of what we need to do to solve these problems in the future. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me what I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Man, the fact that this footage got released, it's far too late, but thank God it actually did, because these people should not have been sitting in jail, locked up the way that they have been, being bastardized and brutalized and having their names dragged through the mud by the state because they wanted to nothing more than support the system with which they felt had lied to them. I'm going to end it there. As I've said, thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely, stay great. Tell someone you love them. Peace out.